What's up, gamers? It's your boy, JKon. Welcome to another video. With the 2024 VCT season right around the corner, I thought it'd be fun to go through my pick'ems for the kickoff tournament and see how many of them I can get correct. Of course, my pick'ems may not 100% be correct because of course we have not seen all these teams in action, especially with all of their new additions, but I thought it'd still be fun to go through it nonetheless. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz, as it does really help me out and I appreciate it greatly. Also, feel free to comment any other video topics you want me to cover, as I would love to increase my production on this channel. Now, without further delay, let's get into it. Oh, baby. Okay, so I am going to provide a little bit of context for each team that has now joined the Chinese Franchise League. A lot of this information was found from Ryan Central's video, so I will link that down below. Definitely give it a watch, because that man definitely knows a lot more about Chinese Valorant than I do, and he really goes in depth about each of the teams and like what he projects for them, and I loved it and I thought it was really good. So I recommend go watching it. I'm just going to give you a breakdown of some of the teams just because I think that might help. I don't want to say a little, but probably a lot, in my opinion. It'll probably help a lot. Okay, Trace Esports versus Tyloo. We'll start with Trace. Trace are a pretty much newer organization. They were originally Totoro Gaming. Shout out to Totoro. If you ever watched My Neighbor is Totoro, it's a good movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Highly recommend. So they used to be Totoro Gaming, and then they're now sponsored by Trace. And this organization has been in the Crossfire scene for a while, which is a mobile game. But yeah, overall, this organization is like a small org. They don't have that many followers comparatively to the other organizations, and they have pretty much like a small following. The one thing I do want to say though is that they did perform really well during the Evolution series that China had to play prior to Ascension. They went 4-2-4 in all of their events, which is pretty freaking good. Their IGL Heibei is pretty good. He struggles at fragging at times, but he has pretty good positioning in my opinion. I think the real star is Feng on this roster, who is their duelist. He is really good. I think he's underrated, to be honest, and I think during all the Evolution events I was really just impressed by what he was doing. Yeah, there's other players like Stu who we'll get to, but Feng was really good. They have a initiator slash flex player named YOU. It's pronounced YOU, not Yo. He's insane. He just clicks heads, and he has that it factor to him. Like I'm a big fan of him. I think he's really good. He looked really good during Ascension as well, and their coach is really good. Their coach is Destroyer. Something that Ryan Central pointed out was that he takes really good timeouts, and they always have good strategies out of timeouts. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't pay attention that much while I was watching it, because of course the Evolution series is going on at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, so you know, DGen hours, it's hard to pay attention. But anyways, I think this team is really good. They had a ton of support in the arena. Like the crowd, like TE fighting, like they had a huge crowd. They had flags. Like this team has a lot of support behind them, and I actually really rate them quite high. I like this team a lot. That's Trace. Now we go to Tyloo, an OG organization in China. They have been a part of a lot of different esports titles, most notably known in Counter-Strike. A familiar name that played on their roster is of course Xcurate, who is now on T1. He used to play under the Tyloo banner along with Buntet, who was a very famous Indonesian Counter-Strike player. Anyways, Tyloo has been in the scene for a really long time. They're just like a very storied organization. Overall, the team coming into this year, they were able to place top 8 in all the Evolution events, and I thought some of their players were decent, and I think they have a potential, but I'm still iffy on a few of them overall. In my opinion, they did sign HFMI or Alphabet Guy or Wi-Fi Password, whatever else you want to call him, who is absolutely insane. I can't believe that no one else really picked him up, because he's incredible at Raze. He's a very good Sova. He can play other roles. He's just very good. I'm big on HFMI. I think he can help carry this team throughout the year, but not in this event. So we're going with Trace. Moving on to the final 2 teams that are in this group, we have Fun Plus Phoenix. FPX, of course, should be well known. They are a very popular organization in China. They, of course, won League of Legends Worlds in 2019, and they've been in the Valorant scene since day one. They originally picked up an EMEA roster called Party Parrots, which is Angel, Zipan, and Xiao's original roster that, of course, went on to win Masters Copenhagen in 2022, who have now become Na'Vi. Anywho, this organization, even with the Chinese roster, has still seen quite some success. They were able to go to lock-in at the beginning of 2023, as well as champions at the end of 2023. And they definitely have a very unique style to their gameplay. They play double controller like Astra Omen and shit. Whatever they're cooking up over there is really fun. I think watching their IGL Berlin play is just really interesting. They brought in a Australian duelist for the Evolution series named Autumn, who he's been fragging out, man. He's so good. And yes, although he does speak some Mandarin, they do comment in English for him. Plus, they have also signed Life from Attacking Soul Esports. Life, of course, has been a very successful duelist from his time on EDG and ASE, of course, being a part of those organizations who went on to make international events. He played extremely well for ASE, and although ASE did not get a bid into the franchise league, they did play pretty well during Ascension, but unfortunately, they were unable to make it across the line, and their team got stripped of pretty much all of their players. Life will be taking the main duelist role from Autumn, so we'll see Autumn move to Flex, but I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. This team is going to be very good. We'll go on to Nova, which is a much newer organization, and I'm gonna be real with you, I have never heard of these guys at all. When they announced the Nova organization got accepted into VCT, I was like, who? You know that meme from Guardians of the Galaxy, like, I am Star-Lord, I am Nova. Who? Anyways, Nova Esports, they were founded in 2020, and apparently they're quite popular in China. I think Ryan Central said they had like 2 million followers on Weibo or something like that, which is insanity considering I've never heard of them before. But anyways, they're very popular in mobile gaming, especially PUBG Mobile and Wild Rift. A point that Ryan pointed out was a lot of these organizations that the VCT Chinese franchise brought in are mobile gaming organizations. So of course, with Valorant Mobile coming out, I definitely see how that could have been a good selling point. Of course, we've seen other teams in the past like RRQ, which is also a mobile gaming organization, so that's probably why it helped them get a bid into the franchise league. Overall though, they did not make too many inspiring roster moves, and they sucked in Chinese like everything, so they're gonna be the bottom of the table team in my opinion. They do have a player named Ooh, which I think is kind of fun to say, but I'm not high on that team at all. So we're going with FPX. Now, FPX versus Trace, I will be going with FPX here. I think FPX will be the second best team in the region early on, in my opinion. I think FPX are going to be really freaking good. I think they'll put up like a pretty good fight. This will be a good match to watch for sure. Tyloo versus Nova. Tyloo is going to go past them. Again, Nova's going to be the worst team. Trace versus Tyloo. Again, I think Trace is going to take the rematch because I think just Trace is a better squad. Moving on, let us go to Group B. We have JDG, Titan Esports Club, Dragon Ranger Gaming, and All Gamers. As far as I can see, this is such... it's a pretty well-defined group in my opinion, and that opinion will start with JDG. Of course, JDG is a very long storied organization. They've been part of the LPL since 2017. They're owned by Jingdong, which is like Amazon, and it's a billions dollar company. Like, they got bank. Speaking of bank, they spent $16 million on their League of Legends roster last year, primarily signing superstar players, including a Ruler, who was the best AD carry in the world at that point, and they were on their way to a golden road where they won every single one of their regional leagues. They won MSI, but unfortunately they were stopped short in the semifinals of Worlds by Faker as he ended the golden road. And yeah, these guys got the bank for it. The roster that they were able to pick up was the Rare Atom core, which they spent about $1 million for. I think this is of course great for them because the Rare Atom core really showed out, especially during the Evolution series and Ascension. Unfortunately, of course, they did not win Ascension, but they were one of the best teams throughout. Stu is an absolute beast. He is a Korean jet main, and he just hard carries that team. Like, he puts up absolute numbers. He's an absolute monster. And unfortunately for Rare Atom and a lot of these challengers teams, they get to have 2 imports to play in the Evolution and Ascension. But unfortunately, when you make it to the main stage, you're only allowed to have 1 import. So the decision was between the superstar duelist or the IGL named Yeoman. As much as I was a fan of Yeoman, it did suck to see him to get cut. There was rumors that he might coach, but I think he still wants to play, so that's why he's not with his roster anymore. I think if a Korean challengers team wants to pick him up, I think he's a pretty good pickup. He had some good calling, but Stu is just different, bro. And I went back and forth on if I was happy or not, but I think you gotta keep your superstar players. And I think finding an IGL to play around them is easier than finding another superstar. So I like JDG's plan, what they did. They also brought in JKon from Top Esports, who was not the IGL of Top Esports during their Ascension run, but he will be the new IGL for them. And my opinion, Viva is also really freaking good. So I mean, with Stu and Viva, I think this team is going to be really good. Their other two players that they had, Martin and Ihao, they're okay. They're iffy. I think Martin like overheats and like overthinks, so he played pretty bad in some maps. But again, Stu and Viva are just that good that they can carry this team. So I expect JDG to be good, probably pretty good out the start, but I think they'll be better by the end of the year as they get more comfortable with the new caller. Now we go to TEC, or Titan Esports Club. This team is pretty much known as RB's team because nobody else has really heard about them. Short story behind them, they only played in the 3rd evolution event and they placed 6th, which was already better than Tyloo, who only made top 8, and they looked pretty good. Like they looked really good for a roster that just got together. They did knock out BLG along the way in evolution 3. I think with more time, this roster can be really, really good, but there's just like a lot of questions for them. I think they were coming in Chinese beforehand, but of course signing RB, which I guarantee will be a starter, they're gonna have to switch their calling style to possibly English, so that might struggle early on. So I'm gonna go with JD Gaming just because their team is more used to calling in English. I believe Top also called in English because they had Koreans on their team and they have played in that environment, so I'm gonna go with JDG here in the opening matchup. Now we get to DRG and All Gamers. Okay, we'll go with DRG. DRG, of course, is the Ascension team that won the Chinese Ascension. They have a superstar Russian Sentinel player named Vukashu, he's cracked, man. Like these Russian players, man, I don't know what they feeding them out there, but he's cracked, bro. He's hella cracked. You want to talk about a Russian player? Let's talk about Donk, bro. You ever watch CS? Look up Donk. This kid is the future. Anyways, moving on. The team really came together throughout the season, and then they started looking better. I think they struggled a lot early on, but during Ascension, they really found their form. As a team, as a whole, I think they'll be okay. They had to, unfortunately, drop their controller player, Zeno, who is Singaporean. Again, same import rules that affects JD Gaming. So I'm like iffy on them. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Ascension teams will compete against the big stages. I think in China, it's a little bit easier to have that question because kind of everybody played in the same pool versus the other 3 franchise leagues did not. So DRG could show out. They might surprise people. They might surprise me. Who knows? All right, the other team that is on here is All Gamers, and this one I did not know, so it's shout out to Ryan Central again because I had no idea who the hell they were, but they have been a very, very well-known brand in China, and they're actually part of the LPL. They are known as anyone's legend in LPL. I don't understand why teams and organizations use different brandings. Like, I understand if it's a secondary team, like G2 has Gozin for their Game Changers roster, they have Hell for their women's League of Legends roster. Like, I totally get that, but it's still G2 something, you know what I mean? It's not All Gamers and anyone's legend. Anyways, since they have been in the LPL for a while, they are very familiar with Riot. So again, that's why I'm not surprised that they got in. They cut pretty much everybody from their roster that was not very good, and they have signed a bunch of new players, most notably Bunt and Monk from Attacking Soul Esports, who were bench players. To be frank here, Monk was swapping in and out of the roster with Zero throughout the Evolution series, and then Bunk fell out of the rotation. So I don't know. They had okay showings. We've seen Monk on the big stage with ASE, of course, but we've actually seen both of them on the big stage with them, but and they also signed Sword9, who is the assistant coach on EDG last year. So it's not the main coach that we got to see calling timeouts and stage time and whatnot. Is their assistant coach. He used to play for K1 Esports, but he hasn't been playing for an entire year. So it'll be interesting to see how he'll come in. Of course, as an IGL, since he was a coach, I think his IGLing will probably be pretty solid, but I don't know how well he'll play. Their duelist that they brought in is Delby. pretty inexperienced for the most part. I don't really know much about him, so guess it's got a lot of potential. And last but not least, they signed Coach Ego from ASE. Of course, ASE again were able to make international events. I thought Life and Yuka were really good on that roster. So yeah, I mean, coaching obviously has an effect on that. So I think this team might surprise people, but I think they're going to be a more of a bottom table team in my eyes. So in their matchup against DRG, I'm gonna go with DRG just because it's more of a known quantity. Moving on between JD Gaming and DRG, no question in my mind, JDG are going through. Titan Esports versus All Gamers. Both of them have huge question marks, but I think Titan just played better. I mean, just even during the Evolution series, we have proof of them playing better. So I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna go with Titan. F it, man. Fukashi is really good, but I don't know. Some of the changes, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. If we're gonna talk about a group of question marks, like this is definitely the group of question marks. You lose your main IGL. This one loses their controller player. Plus, they're also the Ascension team. This one is rebuilt from the ground up. TEC looked really good. It was brand new. Just brought in a new player that doesn't speak the same language. So I don't know, but those are my picks. We're gonna go with that. And last but not least, we have the final group. Of course, we have BLG or Billy Gaming. They, of course, should be a familiar name. They went to Champions LA this past year for their international debut. Of course, smacking NRG, beating them twice, 2-0. So, yeah, what can they say? Unfortunately for them, though, they might have just been on a heater during that because after Champions, they fell off a freaking cliff and they did not perform well at all. And they definitely struggled. BLG is a huge streaming platform in China and they've been in the LPL for a long time, so should be a very familiar name. They did make a few roster changes, so they dropped Rin, who is their controller player. Thank God, bless up. No hate against Rin, but man, my man can't shoot. We'll just put it that way. So I'm really happy that they dropped him. They brought in Bear to be the IGL and he'll be taking over the controller role, but he was originally a flex initiator role. I do think controller is one of the easier roles to learn the nuances of, and I think it's easier to call. Maybe it's easier to call from initiator too, but I believe Bianc probably wants to be the main initiator player still. And I know they wanted to relieve him of the calling duties. So bringing in a new IGL, that might help a lot. But I don't know. I think BLG has quite a few question marks, but I still think their team is really good. They did play off-season events and they didn't look that good, but they were swapping players in and out. They're letting their academy players play. So I don't know. I feel like BLG has a lot of variability, but I still think they'll probably take it over Wolves. Now, who are Wolves? Wolves is a funny story. So Wolves is the esports branch of the Wolverhampton Wanderers, which is a English Premier Soccer team that was founded in 1877, and their esports division was founded in 2018, primarily known for Arena of Valor and Call of Duty Mobile. So another mobile-esque thing. You most likely will recognize their logo from being the primary logo on the Evil Geniuses jerseys from the 2023 season. Obviously, they took away their support because they got their own franchise team. Now this team, I'm actually really high on. I think they brought in a lot of new players. They originally brought in the core of Monarch, but I don't think most of them are playing. I think they're only going to be playing Alulba because they brought in a bunch of other players that I think are of higher quality. One, they brought in Spring, who is a duelist. He played for Ninjas in Pajamas and he was like the bright spot for that team. They also brought in Plix, who many North American fans will know for playing with Sonics. He's an Australian IGL, but he's also been playing in China for quite a while and has been IGLing in Chinese for quite a while. And he most recently played for Weibo Gaming. So, you know, an experienced IGL from the region. They signed Coldfish from Top, who I don't know too much about, but I thought he played pretty decently. But that Top roster that was playing with the Koreans and JKon, I don't know if they necessarily got the transition from common in Chinese to English and Korean to English respectively. They also brought in JKon from ASE, and JKon, of course, he's good. He was originally the FPX duelist, but he was replaced by Autumn and he transferred to ASE where he would play Sentinel for the team. Again, he played really well and he performed quite well on that new role, with him and Life being like the 1-2 punch. Fortunately, ASE did not win Ascension and he has now found his way to Wolves. So I think he will be a very key part for this roster. I think this roster is primarily built around Spring and JKon, so I guess we'll see how they go forward. I think it's going to take them some time to get together though, and BLG, I think we've just to seeing a little bit more of. So I'm gonna go with BLG here. And of course, we go to the last organization from China. It's Edward Gaming, or EDG. They should not be a stranger to anybody. EDG has been in the esports space for a very long time. They of course were founded for League of Legends originally, and they brought in the original core of the World Elite team, which was China's best roster back in like season 3, season 4, and they've just been a staple of Chinese League of Legends and Chinese esports for a really long time. My favorite Chinese team for sure. I've been rooting for them for a really long time. They won Worlds in 2021. Shout out to my boy Flandre. Yes sir, yes sir. And Scout, yes sir. And going to their Valorant division, of course, EDG were the first Chinese team to burst onto the international stage. They played Champions 2022. They were able to go to all 3 of the international events in 2023. Were able to make top 6 and have deep runs. And of course, their superstar Kong is just a fan favorite. How can you not love this team? They are the best team in China. They did struggle a little bit in some of the Evolution Series events, but to be honest, I think that's more because of overplaying and just burnout rather than them being bad. And they weren't even bad. They won every single Evolution Series event, 3 for 3. And of course, instant bid into the franchise league, so they didn't have to pay Ascension. So I'm hoping that they were able to take a break and finally get some rest. And they're China's best team. They're the team that everybody's going to be chasing after. It's no question that they're going to move on. They're going to be at Madrid, baby. Hell yeah. And of course, we'll go back to the matchup between BLG and Wolves. I will go again with BLG here, just because I think Wolves will need some time to get together. And there you go. Those are my pick'ems for China. Let me know down below what your pick'ems are, what teams you're excited for, or if there's any teams that you might be interested in China, because of course it's the new franchise league. It should be really, really exciting. The new season kicks off really, really soon. I'm excited to see what happens. I hope I got a lot of these right, and maybe my predictions and watching all those VODs might come in handy. Who freaking knows? At the end of the day, it's just a pick'em. It's just a pick'em. And this is just Valorant, and we're here for a good time and hopefully a long time. And that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know who you have progressing forward in the kickoff tournament, which teams you're rooting for, which players you're rooting for. Let me know if you have any questions going into the new season that I can help answer out. I would just love to hear what you guys have to say. I am super, super excited for this new season to begin. Of course, it's just right around the corner, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen. Anyways, thanks for watching. And until next time, stay hydrated. Peace.